The Barcrawl Chunkman, Episode 12, A Year of Progress. Welcome back, everyone! It's great to see you again all so soon. It's been quite some time since I've put out any new Chunk Account episodes, even though just a few weeks ago I put out the entire series recap up until now and the informative guide. But that doesn't quite count as up-to-date info for everything I've been doing on the account. Before we get into today's episode, I'd like to say, this Chunkman is a passion project, not a job. From the upcoming clips, there will be many moments where I played without membership or for very little time each day. To avoid going into copious real-life details as to why, my financial situation and my ability to play multiple accounts and make GP for bonds for those accounts, or just flat-out purchase membership, was at the time an undoable situation for me. On a side note, to why being in free-to-play actually helped this account for a bit, I was able to get a higher rate of iron bar drops from white knights, and I was able to get more lamps from random events. Ultimately, I can just keep all of those lamps in my inventory until I have membership on the account and use them in any skill of my choosing. So don't let anybody tell you you can't have fun on a restricted account in free-to-play, because me and many others I know do and have. But other than that, to answer any general questions about my chunks and my account, I decided to make an informative guide, which I mentioned earlier. You can find it here. This was uploaded on its own, so if people want an explanation on my account's goals, restrictions, and rules, you have them. I recommend watching that first and then coming back to this video afterwards if you don't have an idea of the rules and restrictions of my account. One final side note before the episode's content actually starts. If anyone had seen the mini episode I had made in the past when I lost internet, whoops, it was expensive, I appreciate you for doing so, but even if you haven't seen it, you really don't need to watch this episode. It was only a quick little info dump of clips that I had in the short time before my internet went out. So ultimately, if you didn't watch that, don't worry about it. I'm going to unlist it. It will still be in the Chunkman playlist, but it's not going to be in my main videos. Now, in the words of the Epic Nate, without further ado, let's do further. Act 1. The Demon of the White Knights. Felidor, oh Felidor. You're so beautiful and majestic. I know someday I'm really going to struggle to ever be one of your people, because after the genocides I've committed, not only here to the White Knights, but to the gnomes, the zoo in Ardoin, the ogres outside Yanil, the guards of many towns, and the people of Iraq, senseless violence does seem to be the way of the barbarians, though. And I have also heard many say it's the way of these so-called adventurers that I see all around me, completing countless quests and getting amazing gear. I knew I'd miss my home, and I'd miss my people, but I never could have imagined the emptiness it left inside of me. The gnawing, aching feeling of my memories of the youth I once had, fading from me, just to be replaced with these horrific images of my actions. Why couldn't I have spared some? Why didn't I think twice? Why did I kill the gnome children? Is it my nature? Or is this my purpose? And is that why that woman banished me from the barbarians before my day of coronation to join the assault force fighters? I feel she may have sensed my weakness and my lack of tact. The only time I'd ever left the village before then was as a child, on a trip with my fellow long-haul children to an island known as Tutorial Island. It was kind of regretfully boring and lackluster. I couldn't even get an attack level back then. I wonder how those adventurers became who they are from starting their lives there. But that woman, why did she tell me to get that card from Mr. Grimhand? I've never heard of another barbarian needing to prove his worth. Is there something different about me? Am I really a barbarian? Oh man, what a night. Those wizard mind bombs after the normal beers I've been drinking really do a number on me. I gotta be careful after, well, time to go do my daily training. After a brief sleep, the account returned to life with a goal. Train on white knights, men, guards, imps, and more until I can efficiently and effectively kill the giant mole. Efficient for me being under 15 minutes per kill. At the start, it was taking me anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes plus. Now, on to that training. First level of the combat grind was actually 3 levels on 2 accounts. What? I hear you asking. But Moose's Bar got 52 defense, 80 combat, and then my main also got 80 woodcutting on the side. The next little bit, both of these accounts are in free to play as a heads up. Now, these multi-levels don't happen regularly, and I'm not going to be including any more of them, so don't worry if you don't care about my main. I totally understand. The monster I chose to train on for these early levels was White Knights. They are by far the best for me to kill when the account is in free to play, for the chance to get iron bar drops. And following that multi-clip, we got 53, 54, 55, and 56 defense, plus 81 combat, off guards and white knights. Because occasionally guards can also drop normal iron, and that's also very useful. We also got 57 defense and 56 prayer in the same clip off an imp. After focusing on guards and imps for a little bit, I went back to the knights and got 58 and 59 defense. Then, we got the big 60 defense on a chicken when making food for training. I called it there for training the melee stats, and went back to knights again, and you got 73 hit points and 77 range. I received a lamp that pushed us into 5 crafting finally. For now, all future lamps will be going into a combination of crafting when in free-to-play and construction in pay-to-play. The goal for construction is to hit level 40 so we can move our player-owned house to Brimhaven, and the goal for crafting is to get 20 so we can cut sapphires from the shop inside of our chunk. After this, I will be putting all of my lamps into prayer to help the 70 prayer grind any way I can. Back to that crafting level we got though, level 5 unlocks gold rings for us, which allows us to use our first and only mold that we have, and we got in our first chunk from the barbarian woman, at least until 45 construction when we can make the tool store 3 and get all the types of jewelry molds. So, using that mold, plus the gold bars we had gotten from Eclectic Implings, we now reliably have a way to train crafting after level 20 with Harquin's Gem Shop in Falador. This gives us a goal of obtaining either a Fire Battle Staff at level 62 or an Amulet of Power at level 70. If I get an Amulet of Power from other sources before the chunk grinds are done, then I'll go for 62 for the staff upgrade. Otherwise, I have to get level 70 for the Amulet upgrade. So once we hit level 5, I decided to take a quick break from training combats, and I used first the iron ore drops that I had acquired from the guards to get level 23 smithing. Afterwards, as I've been talking about, you might have noticed it has taken, in the background, 35 total days of playtime on this account to reach level 5 crafting after all of our other lamping we've done, with Hunter, and occasionally in construction too. We've been able to level up crafting like a damn madman all the way to 18 with the gold bars that we had stockpiled. And we made over 200 gold rings, which was a nice amount of alking XP and GP. Sadly, we didn't have enough gold bars at the moment though to reach level 20 crafting, which would allow us to cut and buy all the sapphires we would like. But that's why I mentioned we would be lamping it in free to play until level 20. And if you, like myself, think it was a dumb decision to use every gold bar I had right now, you'd be very, very correct. I had to catch an absurd amount of implings later to get the gold bars I would need to make useful amounts of jewelry. After the short crafting and elking grind, I went back to the White Knights, and I had the beginning of my bad luck streak for Evil Bob events this episode. Magic XP again. After the event though, I got level 78 ranged, and then level 74 hit points. By this point, I had killed almost a total of 5,000 White Knights, but hadn't quite hit that milestone yet. 38 kills later, here's that 5,000 White Knight clip, followed by 2 more Evil Bob events. Will either of these be fishing XP? Well, the first was magic, but the second was fishing. We now have level 26 fishing, and have also slain 2,002 imps because they're my best method of prayer XP in both free to play and pay to play at the moment, and I swapped to them after getting level 78 ranged. After the Bob events, the next was a dunce event. We got level 19 crafting with the book, and for now we only have one more level until Sapphires. After being in Falador, training for so long, I started chopping trees to have some banked logs for a future possible fletching grind of 80 fletching for a magic shortbow. And I wanted to have something AFK to do with the little bit of attention I could put into playing at the time. Then, I moved over to Barak to enter the Man House to hopefully finish a few beginner clues. I would like to note, because it's very important, I started this beginner clue grind before they put the changes in to have clue scrolls last for an hour on the ground. You could still hop, and they would stay on the ground at this point, but they weren't there for an hour. Had I done it after this update, I would have completed way more clues, and I would have been members at the time, so I had a higher chance to complete an easy clue as well. With that though, let's get into the clue grind. Act 2. An absurdly frustrating clue grind. After returning to Barak, it took me quite a while until I saw any clue steps I could do, but after roughly 3 hours of killing men and juggling clues constantly, I also had to log out if I needed to go pee or grab something to drink due to fear of having my clues despawn. I finally had 2 doable steps and got level 57 prayer in the process. The results of my first clue on this grind, being the 4th total on the account, 3rd legitimate, was a singular longbow. I think it now evens out to make it a legitimate amount of clues done. And yes, I tried for another clue. But before I did, I tackled the one step of the Crack the Clue event that I could do, which was pointless, but fun to have a little bit of extra dialogue in Barak. Back on track, we had another Evil Bob event with Magic XP. Yeah, I was having a rough day after the longbow now, but if that wasn't enough, I had 2 doable clues again, and then I decided I don't need to log out this time for my pee, and well, let's just say some real life circumstances dictated I got logged out to being AFK for more than 20 minutes. Nowadays, this would have been totally fine with the clue update that keeps them on the ground for an hour, but that still hadn't dropped. And the icing on the cake was a single kill later. I got a clue that would have been a 3rd and a guaranteed beginner casket. I had a really rough day that day, needless to say, but in what I suppose is better news, that's almost 7,000 total men slain. And here's 7,000 total men slain. But oh, we're not done. Here's level 79 ranged, 500 kills later at 7,500 total. At this point, I want to attempt my clue steps again. I had 2 at this point, and I really wanted to lock down a 3rd before 7,500, but I couldn't take the man house anymore, and I needed to change my scenery. Now for something a little different. For all you mathematicians out there, 2 men spawn inside that room with a 15-second respawn timer. Assuming I killed them in a minimum of 2 hits, that would be 8 ticks for 4.8 seconds per kill, assuming I clicked and killed them on the same tick they spawned. So for just 500 men, it would take me 165 minutes at peak efficiency of never missing a tick. More realistically, it took me 178 minutes to kill 500 of these men, assuming time to click on them or if I stepped away for a second. So with roughly 1600 slain for this, that's 528 minutes at peak efficiency and likely 580 minutes for me, or in hours, 9.6 total hours of non-stop attention, minus when I log out, to complete a clue that gave me a longbow. And we're about to see the loot of, yes, that's right, we got 5 herring, which we can buy in Brimhaven already, a leather body, which we can pick up in this very chunk, and an iron pickaxe. Let's go away from clues for a bit and go back to training combat skills again now for my mental and physical health. But that is 5 clues completed. Act 3. The Artisanal Barbarian. Coming back into Falador after that so fun time, we have another lamp to use. This will be the final lamp before level 20 crafting and our oh so lovely sapphires. We also have another maze random here, and that gave us 56 coal, 14 nature runes, and a whopping 1270 feathers. Woo! I did some more alching of random garbage in my bank, with the purpose behind it being to see how big of a cash stack I can possibly get before having to return to the barbarian assault, and also to train magic and buy adamant arrows. I then visited some shops to further this goal of making GP. We also needed more GP to use on, as I mentioned, adamant arrows, or mithril arrows to kill them all effectively with soon too. So I needed every GP I could get. My little elk and selling fest left us with a current cash stack of 362k. Not very respectable yet, but I'm sure it will grow with time. Now, after those elks and the selling, we go right back to training on knights, and we got level 67 magic to start us off. The elking got us near a level, and I wanted to train it up and finish that off, since it's one of our lowest combat skills anyway. And that was also, for now, the last free-to-play clip. Yippee! Here I am redeeming my last bond I had saved for a very long time. I didn't want to waste it if I only had a total of 1 to 3 days of the 14 days to play a decent amount on, so I held it like the prized jewel it really was. Logging back into Members Worlds now for the first time in a very long time, I started by opening the remnants of implings I still had sitting in my bank. I then used my lamp I had been hoarding in my inventory to get level 20 crafting. In preparation for this level, I'd been buying a lot of sapphires on any free-to-play world that they might have been in stock in. That was doable then, but although these days it's so heavily botted or used by other irons, I have no way to purchase sapphires on free-to-play worlds with any real accuracy. I now could chisel my heart out though, and we went boom, 21 crafting, and then bam, 22 crafting, and then bim bam bum, 23, 24, 25, 26, and the big 27 crafting. We were now able to cut the emeralds in our bank and work towards cutting our rubies and our diamonds in the future. I only had enough emeralds to get 2 more crafting levels to a total of level 29, but for now it's a great start to crafting. Next with my membership was to use up the hundreds of iron bars I had currently collected from killing all those white knights. I had many more to collect as well, but the first level that we got from this, making portal frames, was a nice milestone of level 30 construction. Not very useful for us right now, but it is a nice milestone. And if anyone has made portal frames before, you know how crap XP this is. You get 10 construction XP per iron bar, and it takes 100 iron bars per portal chamber. So you get 100 construction XP per, and a total of 200 construction XP for 1 inventory. This method absolutely sucked to train with, but until I have a copious amount of oak planks from eclectic or young implings saved up, this will be, for now, my only construction method other than using soft clay for the exact same XP rates as the portal frame. Even though it is a common imp drop, the time it takes for 1 imp to spawn versus killing multiple white knights just isn't worth it for me, so I went for the iron bars. After the construction training, I made some more untipped arrows with my feathers. Then I went to see how I was at killing the giant mole now. So let's grab our rope, spade, and lantern and get in those tunnels. Act 4. Molten Menace in Training. The mole kill took me about 10 minutes, which isn't that bad all things considered. But for mole KC-14, this was a far cry from the speed I knew I could eventually in the future have. At least we got some dank fire runes as a drop though. As an aside, I will totally allow my main or other people to help me locate the giant mole with a Falador shield. I still didn't have the Falador hard diary done yet on my main, but to help see the mole, I would be using it in the future, and I wanted to mention that now. Back to the KCs, 15 gave us law runes, 16 gave us blood runes, 17 gave us air runes, 18 gave us an adamant longsword, 19 gave us iron arrows, 20 gave us another adamant longsword, 21 gave us a really nice amulet of strength, and 22 gave us some more air runes. Going back up to the surface now with a full inventory, I replanted an oak tree and decided to knock out the easy Falador tasks that I could of using the hairdresser. And please note, this look that I went for was changed back to the original hairstyle before too long. But for now, please enjoy Moose's barb with, as the game calls it, a side afro. Although I think it looks more like myself during summertime with some humidity. After the haircut, I completed more diary tasks by filling a bucket with water from the pump outside, and I got that task done. That's all there was to it. I made my way to the White Knight's castle, and somehow they weren't opposed to letting me know my family crest for the second to last diary task that I could do inside of this chunk. I then quickly visited the chunk picker and updated some of my completed tasks already. Currently, my task list looks a little bit whack right now, but after I properly change drop rates the next time I visit the site to what they should be at the 1 out of 100 rate for resource drops, 1 out of 1k drop for uniques, and 1 out of 4k for pets, my task list looked a lot more correct. Also, thank you so much to Source Chunk for adding an option of interactable parts of your chunk. This allowed me to fix a lot more of the issues with my chunk picker, where I had direct access to in the chunk, or if I was able to do a little backdoor fix of saying I couldn't access a certain part so it showed properly that I couldn't do those tasks at the moment, because I didn't have direct access into it. Back into the world of RuneScape, I started on collecting some more sapphires with world hops. For more GP, I do have the option of buying sapphires, cutting them, and selling them back to Harquin for a few hundred GP profit, but this is not as much of a priority to me as eventually the gold bars I will have to use these cut gems in my bank and get more crafting XP with them. My hopping shenanigans got me level 30 crafting, and then level 31 crafting, which also gave us total level 1075. Then we got level 32 crafting, level 33 crafting, and level 34 crafting, which gives us the ability to cut all of our rubies. Then with our rubies, we got level 35. Halfway to the level goal of 75, but still very far in XP. After crafting, I went to check on my tree. I had my very first tree die. I am very sorry to OSRS for my luck in general with growing trees and getting tree seeds, but this isn't a big setback. As I just mentioned, I've gotten a lot of seeds. After coming back, we got level 18 farming. I also had an axe with me in a gravedigger random event, so I tried cutting down the tree and saw this neat dialogue option of, "You don't need any wood. What are you planning on doing? Making them a fresh coffin?" Which I thought was really funny, and I'd never seen it before. After that event, I went back to hopping for gems, and kept hold of the lamp I had in my inventory for now. Then I got back to chiseling again. With all of the gems I got, I quickly got 40 crafting, and then level 41, which allowed me to make a range shield upgrade of the hard leather shield. This is kind of pointless, but it's always fun to have more random gear on this account, and it will be useful if I ever get a better crossbow in the future. We'll call that a win. Now let me use that lamp in my inventory on construction real quick, and then get another one, well, woodcutting, that also went to construction. Neither of these gave me a level, but they are a decent chunk of a way towards a level. I went back again to hopping for gems. I was also one of the people who experienced that weird empty world where all you saw was NPCs around you. It was pretty cool, but I had to reset my client to bank, and it fixed itself. This time I had about 300 sapphires at my disposal, so back to crafting. We got level 42, 43, and 44, which unlock the ability to chisel diamonds. I made sure to keep at least one uncut diamond for the future, if we ever get to Xanaris. Back to more woodcutting though, and impling catching. We got level 79 woodcutting. I then opened all of my implings up now, and we got enough gold bars to get the last bit of XP to get level 45 crafting. We were now able to enchant Rings of Life. But this was kind of pointless until we can get our spawn changed to spawn in Falador. It was also at this point I was looking away when I tried to catch an impling, and it managed to pull me not out of one, but 2 chunks. Luckily, already one of these chunks I had the music track from, but it pushed me all the way into the one that gave me Dwarf Theme, which you can get to the northeast in the Falador Park part. So it's not the most far place to have been pulled, but it still wasn't a great place to have been pulled. I then took a little break from woodcutting. I also had 2 individual times worth of world hops saved up, which was about 600 sapphires. This got me level 46, level 47, and level 48 crafting. Afterwards, I used the 2 lamps that had been obtained while I was on mobile and got even closer to a construction level. Then I opened some bird's nests that I obtained from all my woodcutting, which gave me 2 more useful acorns. It was now at this point I had gotten the Falador Hire Diary done on the side on my main, which is part of the other reason I was doing woodcutting. We went down into the mole tunnels, and I got KC23 for a rare drop table drop of an emerald. I know the login time is 20 minutes, but being able to find the mole, it took me closer to 7 to 10. During waiting for the mole to spawn, I got a lamp, which gave me level 33 construction. And whoops, I forgot to mention, I used a lot of my mobile lamps well on mobile, and got 2 whole construction levels from it back then. Back to the giant mole though that spawned. KC24 was air runes. KC25 gave us the combat task Giant Mole Champion and 100 U-logs. KC26 was more air runes. KC27, absolutely nothing except the skin and claws. KC28 was blood runes. I then decided to take a quick break to collect some more sapphires and got another 274, which got me level 49. And then the big level 50 crafting. 20 more levels to go. I went back to train ranged a little bit at White Knights and got a Molly random event, which gave me 4 more uncut diamonds. And this is my main way of obtaining them, so after a little bit of time, I can collect more. And after a little bit of more time, we got level 80 ranged. I then went through my implings again in hopes of more epic loot, but got very little. Now, with 80 ranged, I had an extra max hit on the giant mole, and I decided to bring my cannon on my main, so that if people didn't see my main, they definitely saw my cannon in the tunnels and knew that the world was being used. And if you're curious what I did to stay active on that account, I just fletched tens of thousands of arrows towards the goal of 99. But my Chunker's 29th mole KC gave me blood runes, KC 30 gave me another 100 U-logs, and also the combat task avoiding those little arms. KC 31 was death runes. KC32 was more U-logs. This whole trip, I was an absolute fool, and you might have noticed, but I forgot the most important part of killing the giant mole for my account. Bringing teleport runes. I swear you'd think I wouldn't forget them at a bank, but I constantly forget things, and this is no different. I sacrificed some law runes since I messed up here. I dropped 15 for it next time I got one as a drop from the giant mole, and proceeded to buy more adamant arrows before I went back to grind out more giant mole after this mistake. I bought a few hundred, and then got KC 33, which got me those law runes, that I then also realized I could have just stayed in the mole tunnels in the future and killed the mole until I got law runes, fire, and air runes as drops, and just teleport out. But I'm not always the smartest tool in the shed. I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry? So, before KC34 was finished though, we had a Flippa event, KC34. It was Death Runes. KC35 was a rare drop table drop of a loot path of a key. KC36 was more U-Logs. And KC37 was more U-Logs. KC38 was not U-Logs again, but fire runes. KC39 was iron arrows. And then I decided to take another quick training montage away from the mole because I knew I would need to be more AFK for the foreseeable future. So let's get into that. Act 5. Barbarian Homestead. It was at this point now I was so tired of that hairstyle I had picked and hiding it under hats because I was kind of ashamed of my choice. I went back to the hairdresser and swapped to our original hairstyle, which was called Samurai. I also had another dunce random event and used it on construction. Since I was above ground after my giant mole trip anyway, I decided to collect more sapphires. It took the entirety of world hops and 2 uncut emeralds to reach level 51 crafting. We're now really getting to the point that these full sets of world hops really don't do as much for us as they used to level-wise with crafting, but you know, that is what it is, and it's gonna happen as XP becomes less and less towards a level. I also got a few more bird's nests and opened them and checked in on my tree I had abandoned again and got level 19 farming. In the meantime, I went back to some white knights to get some training on and got a few more random events to throw at construction. Neither gave me a level. I went to my POH and made an oak larder to get level 34 construction because I wanted my future lamps to give me more XP until level 40. It was also at this point I used some of the oak planks I had towards decorating my house a little bit with some basic amenities. I was now also able to get as much milk as I wanted from my POH. I tried to get a construction boost, but without a sink made, I currently don't have a way to do so. In the future, I will be able to though. And I even made a little dresser and can change my clothes and how I look now. Not that I really want to do that though. Teleporting back to Falador, and then going back to White Knights, we got level 75 hit points and are once again in free to play. Sadly, that bond I had used ran out, and it's back to the maple short bow with at best mithril arrows to train with. I could try using adamant, but it's a waste. And I'm being completely honest with you, I only used bronze or iron arrows because they are so cheap anyway. After getting level 75 hit points, we went back to Varrock and went to the man house again with some renewed vigor to complete some more clues and further train my defense to tank hits from the mole. And no, the clue update still hasn't come out yet. Starting off though, we got level 61 defense. Then we had another evil Bob random event, which gave us some magic XP. And then we killed over 9,000 men. After 9,000 men, still in free to play, we completed our 6th beginner clue and got an oak longbow. What the shit is my luck for beginners? I'm also saving up those lamps in my inventory until I eventually get back into pay to play. After another disappointing clue, I went back to White Knights because I just couldn't do any more after that. That was 1,500 for an oak longbow. I also went back to chickens too and got level 62 defense and 58 prayer. I had also gotten a diamond from a random mystery box, although retrospectively I should have saved this for members accounts because who knows, I could have got a dragon med helm. I then got level 63 defense and became level 84 combat. But my clip corrupted, so enjoy a RuneLight screenshot for it. Following this, I got level 64 defense on an other chicken. Then had a maze random event, which gave me another 1,386 feathers, which is great. I can use that for fishing, or, as I'm going to, more fletching XP. Next event I had was Evil Bob, And that gave us some fishing XP. That's 2 this episode. This gave me level 27 fishing. And we are now at October 20th of 2023 in my clips. And that means one very important thing for my account.
The Giant Cauldron Halloween event.
It's the spooky, scary season, and Jagex has added a little thing for me to do, but we couldn't participate. We could talk to a child, though, and get so many clothes. I was gonna mention we also got some melee weapons, but that sounds really bad that we got a bunch of children's clothes. What we actually got was all of the Halloween items from the past Halloween events, which was extremely useful for the fashionscape side of our account. And we were able to have like some cool weapons like the scythe and the cursed wine bottle, which the scythe has some niche uses, but the cursed wine bottle is not going to really be doing anything. We also were able to put membership back onto the account at this point because I was able to make enough GP to buy 2 bonds and bond up my main and my chunker again. So, with membership, some spooky scary clothes, and a cauldron, I decided I'd engage with the Halloween spirit and do some trick-or-treating. We got a ton of candies for each, just in case they had any point down the line. We also collected a lot of the rotten bananas, spooky eggs, old wool, and smelly socks. I made all of them together into a terrifying charm, but I still kept a bunch of the individual items in my bank to just hoard forever. We also ended up collecting 850 treats in our little cauldron. Not too shabby for a Chunkman. But we can never participate and actually give them into the giant cauldron, so they're just treats for us. Alright, enough Halloween, back to normal Gilnor. I hopped for a bunch more sapphires and got level 52 crafting. Now that I was in my members gear, I decided I would try to go back to the man house again and complete either an easy or more beginner clues on that journey. I also got another lamp. And yes, I deadass tried to get another clue done. Luckily, there's an update that's about to come out right after that Halloween one finished that will save me from trying to do more beginner clues. Act 6. Forestry Part 2 has arrived. Yeah, I really bet you were expecting it to be the clue update. It was not. It was the forestry update. When part 1 came out, I chose to just wait, knowing that soon a lot more items would appear and need to be collected. You're probably wondering, what does forestry mean for me now that I'm in Falador and not in Sears Village? Well, this applies not only to forestry, but any type of content that is added retroactively to one of my chunks. Since the content was added, I have, even though I don't currently have a way into the chunk, to go back and complete this. I wouldn't feel like I had properly completed this series if I didn't do every possible grind that I can realistically inside of the chunks on the Barcrawl. If I had started this series today, there would be this grind in the series, and I want to make sure that I follow my rule set of getting all the things that I can within it, follow my restrictions, but also have some fun and allow myself to enjoy a new update that comes out if it's in one of the chunks I have. This also might mean that Port Sarim becomes a very, very big chunk in the future, but we will find out about that when possibly sailing comes out. And if you are upset that I decided to do forestry and go back to Sears Village, I'm just gonna let you know, don't be. I spent like 200 to 300 hours just woodcutting, and probably more than that, but that is what I can think of off the top of my head for how long I spent doing this. I definitely suffered to do this grind rather than just say, I don't need to do forestry. But for the sake of the series, and the sake of my dignity with the account, I wanted to make sure I did it. And most importantly, for the fun of woodcutting, I wanted to make sure I did it. Okay,
The fact that I'm doing the grind aside, what does that mean since I'm in Falador? Well, I teleported my ass back to Sears Village, grabbed a forestry kit from the friendly forester, and then started chopping thousands of logs and engaging in any event I could. Well inside of Sears Village, or any chunk with retroactive content, I only allow myself to participate in the content with the levels I would have had when I was in that chunk. So for instance, I'm not going to allow myself to use the sewing wheel and spin flax, even though that's awesome. I could get so much free crafting XP and fletching XP just with the like 250 or so flax that I have, but I'm not going to do that because that's not in my rules. That's not in my restrictions. That's not in the idea of the account. But this grind is. Also, I don't think that woman in Barbarian Village will let me back in if I'm not the most fit and fashionable barbarian I could possibly be. Plus, I wouldn't be that good of a chunker if I didn't do everything in a chunk, would I? Anyway, let's get into forestry and then get back to Falador afterwards. Oh, one more pretty important thing that you could think about for forestry is the fact I have access to every single tree that's in the Sears Village chunk that I have in Falador. As long as I keep farming, eventually I will have 60 farming, and I can grow a yew tree, and I can get as many yew logs as I want. But farming is just optional if I want to go and check on my trees. Either way, it's a good thing to mention. Why I would be chopping in Sears Village versus the oak tree that I do have access to in Falador and have just gone to pick up the items I need to pick up from the forester. It just didn't make sense to keep teleporting back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. All of the trees would have been growable. It would have just taken extra months. And this video would have just never come out in that case. So for everybody's sake, mine and yours, we're just going to be chopping in Sears for the next little bit. Don't mind the Sears Village clips. Okay. I think, hopefully, you're on my side about forestry now. And now that we are on equal terms here, let's talk about how useful the forestry events are for my account. And specifically, I'm going to cover the ones that are useful. There are more events than this. These are just the useful ones. Okay? So, the struggling sapling event gives me an alternative method to get farming XP over my tree patch or the spirit tree patch that I have in Port's Rim. And it gives me a decent amount of anima bark and woodcutting XP with that. The poacher event, which also gives the fox whistle, gives me some hunter XP equivalent to basically a nature impling. So it's really nice when it does appear. It's like I can catch 12 to 15 implings. Sadly, I don't get any impling loot, but I get the XP. Next is the beekeeper event. This is normally one of the most disliked events because it burns through people's logs, but it gives me some absolutely delicious construction XP, and for that, I will never say no to sacrificing some logs. I can always cut more later. Like, it's not a big deal. I will get fletching XP. Next event to cover is the Ent haircut. It gives me an additional mountain of fletching XP, which greatly helps towards my personal goal of level 80. It also gives me Egg's Nest at the end, which are fun to collect way more of than the very small amount I had over time. And finally, the last specifically useful event to me is the flowering bushes. They give me strange fruit to restore run energy, which greatly speeds up the KC time for the giant mole, and also some extra seeds that I may one day be able to plant. Otherwise, every other event is nice, but not particularly useful to my account. It's just kinda anima bark and woodcutting XP. Or I guess thieving XP if we want to talk about the pheasants. In the background of me explaining this, you may notice I'm completing every one of the events for the first time, and there seems to be a ton of events around. For anyone who didn't try Forestry Part 2 on the day it entered the game, events were bugged to spawn way more frequently than they were supposed to. You could have, say, 50 people chopping a tree, and all 50 people contributed to the fact that an event would spawn. Now a maximum of 10 people can contribute to the fact that an event will spawn when a tree is chopped down. So, they kinda really nerfed forestry. Luckily, we got a lot of it done pretty quickly, and nowadays the events per hour are closer to 1 to 5 events versus the 5 to 20 events an hour you could expect on this first day. And this definitely sucks for me too, because I needed to get a total of 32,770 anima bark to get everything I could. And even though that sounds like an extreme amount of anima, I was able to knock all of that out, as I mentioned, pretty quickly. And it was pretty easy. All the buyable items in the Friendly Forester store didn't take too long. Yeah, I did some shopping, but I played a lot before that patch went through, so I got a lot of the bark. The reason it sucked for me wasn't because I needed to get all that bark, because as I said, that was quick. There were 2 items that required event items, although I did think there were 3. However, the Petal Garland was gettable apparently at the time without event items. And what I mean by event items, for anyone who doesn't know, on release of Forestry Part 2, there are now removed items that allowed you to participate in the Fox, Pheasant, Dryad, as well as almost every other event to get boosted XP, or the ability to get one of the unique item drops. This included the 2 pet transmog items, the Golden Pheasant Egg, and the Fox Whistle. And I thought, as I mentioned, it included the Petal Garland, but there was rumors it didn't. Every other event, it just gave you more bark or more rewards from that event. For instance, more seeds from the Entlings. We were able to collect 4 collection log slots from pheasant feathers, which you get from the pheasant event as well. Every 15, you can combine them with a needle and thread and make one of the 4 pieces of the outfit, all of which give a collection log slot. Don't worry, for everybody watching, I did put on the entity hider to make it a lot easier on myself as well to interact with the events, chop trees, and just do whatever. It just took me a while to think of it, and I'm sorry it took so long. Along the path of finishing up forestry, I got a lot of levels. The highest levels that I ended with were as follows. Level 33 farming, which was a huge help. It got me all the way past the level for willow trees. Level 55 hunter, level 84 woodcutting, and level 38 construction. I also grabbed an item I had forgotten to get on my first visit to Sears Village. It wasn't on the chunk picker at that time, but the corrupted kite shield, an iron kite shield that was reskinned to be purple for the 2016 Christmas Corrupt the Clue Fest. Cool. If I ever get a pestle and mortar, I can bring one with an air rune to Horvik and Varrock, and then I can have the corrupted plate body as well. But for now, I guess corrupted kite shield unlocked. Also during forestry, I had a bunch of random events. In fact, swarms of forestry events were all over the place, but I only had a few random events. One was a maze that gave me 299 chaos runes, and I did get taunted by a sandwich lady a few more times. She even told me to take a baguette. It was just a normal one though. And any lamp I got continued to be pumped into construction towards that goal of level 40. For anyone who's done forestry, you might have wondered if I used forester rations before I bought a felling handle and converted the normal axe into one. No, I didn't think how useful they would be, but I did eventually start making them, and my best method to make them is fish sold in Brimhaven. But I can't stock up on those fish for a while to come, since I need to have at least 40 construction to move my POH to Brimhaven. But for the time being, I use some of my stockpiled tuna and other random meat and fish in my bank, and I also had wasted a few bronze and iron bars to make event items. Hey, those got converted to GP, so that wasn't too bad. And those forester rations come in really handy. For anyone who doesn't know, eating a forester's ration will restore run energy. You have a chance to eat a forester's ration every 1 out of 4 chops. To be fair, you can have them every back-to-back chop, but it's a 1 out of 4 rate per chop. Anyway, that's how rations work. Once I green-logged as much as I could of forestry, I went back to Falador, and I got the entirety of what I had access to with my logs in exactly 1 week. This included 1 piece of the lumberjack outfit, the boots. Otherwise, it was stuff like the log basket, the felling axe handle, the cape pouch, and the cloak pouch. And I couldn't get those pet transmogs at that point, but I could have got the petal garland. I also got Twitcher's gloves. However, those also got removed when the event items got removed because they got changed from an item with charges to a permanent item. So when I did eventually go back to get the pet transmogs, I also got more Twitcher's gloves. I just wanted to mention that I do go back to also get the pet transmogs when I can. It's just currently at this time in updates, I can't. And I don't for a little bit. With where we're currently at in time for this episode, I think I'm gonna call it here for episode 12. I've only managed to make it to November 2nd in my clips here, so fear not that episode 13 will suffer the same curse of time to come out that this episode did. I'm not gonna spoil anything for episode 13, but if you want to know, feel free, send me a message in-game to the account Moose's Bar or my main, Atamo, both have private on, and you can reach me on my Discord, which has a link to join it in the description. Also, for anybody curious, this took me roughly 300 clips, and I have about 350 more clips for episode 13, so there's going to be a lot more chunker content soon. Thank you everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for choosing to spend your time watching my content over the millions of other options out there. Remember, I love ya, take care of yourself, and drink some water.